Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Monday, the 8th of December. I missed a few days last week. I was down in the Lowveld doing a carol service in Malalan. Today, back in St.Luke's with the scriptures, reading and thinking. One of the chapters Robert Murray McShane has us read is 2 Chronicles 8, which reviews Solomon's life and Solomon's reign. It begins, at the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built the temple of the Lord and his own palace. He rebuilt villages, and he was portrayed as a man that did a whole lot of building tasks, building and strengthening and fortifying much of Israel. So here was a king that was doing, from the worldly perspective, the right thing. He was, from the world's point of view, a good king. Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the palace he had built for her, for he said, "My wife must not enter the palace of David, king of Israel, because the places the ark of the Lord has been are holy." And that's a sort of a bit of an underlined passage. Solomon recognized the compromise he was involved in marrying Pharaoh's daughter. This was a politically expedient marriage, but not a good one. And he recognizes because she cannot be considered holy, therefore it's a compromise. And she wasn't the only one. He had many others. Verse 12 continues, "On the altar of the Lord, which he had built in front of the portico, Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings to the Lord, according to the daily requirements for offerings commanded by Moses." And it goes on to talk about how he arranges and maintains the worship life of the people. Verse 14, "In keeping with the ordinance of his father David, he appointed the divisions of the priests for their duties and the Levites to lead the praise and to assist the priests according to each day's requirements. He also appointed the gatekeepers by divisions for the various gates, because this was what David, the man of God, had ordered." And as I read that, I thought, here he was doing the right thing because that's what David had ordered. He did things according to what David, his father, King David, had arranged. And it just underscores David is described as the man of God. Solomon wasn't. Solomon may have been a good king. He may have been wise. He may have ruled well. Israel may have prospered. But he was not a man of God. David was. And for all his faults, as David got things wrong, he came back to God. He constantly sought God's face because he was a man of God. And in the world today, we need to recognize that sometimes things can run well, but that doesn't necessarily make them good. And so, sometimes the church might be struggling, but being faithful to God, we can cope with the struggles because we're doing what God wants us to do. And it's a challenge I think, for all of us in our lives. We need to do what we can. We need to run well. It's not an excuse for dropping the ball in any way. We need to make sure we do the best we can. But it's never enough to just do the best we can. We need to make sure that we are walking with God, that we're listening to God, that we're waiting on God, that we can be described as the people of God, because that's where the true strength lies. So in the midst of the preparations for Christmas and all that has to be done, often with compromise, often with things not quite right, hang on to God, that we can be the people of God, and we will be blessed.